Hello, I'm now live. I'm inviting my peeps. Today we are talking about responsibility. Responsibility.
Hi.
Hello.
How are we doing, buddy?
Doing good. Like I should. Something neighborhood. She's playing with the donut.
Gorgeous. Awesome.
Gorgeous.
I'm excited to be here with y'all. We're going to be talking about responsibility from an ontology lens. First, let's do a little check-in.
Hi.
Excited
Ow.
to share the space.
The responsibility.
Yeah. So, in preparing for this, I took really good care of myself. And that was kind of an opener that I wanted to share, just realizing that that's the place where we are most wholly responsible. It's for ourselves. And linking it, of course, to what we talked about last week about, self-care and self-love. Being responsible. Yep. So thanks for sharing this space. I'm excited for our conversation.
Thanks for being so responsible for how you're showing up with us.
Yeah, and speaking
Really
of taking care of self, I'm up in the mountains at the moment.
It looks gorgeous.
Hello, mountains.
I'm in Cloverdale with a friend.
That's Mother Earth.
Yeah.
Are they speaking to you?
I'm still live. That's really cool. Thank you. Yeah, when I think about responsibility, from entering, this work, this world of coaching and specifically ontological coaching, I've totally just generated a new definition and understanding of it. And I'm having a hard time creating a definition that doesn't have the word responsibility in it. But if I didn't try to define it, if I tried to just explain it, my vision or my understanding of responsibility is almost like the serenity prayer, right? I'm going to butcher it off the top of my head because this idea just came to mind, but accepting the things that you can't change, the something to
The courage to change.
Courage to change. Thank you. The courage to change when you can, and the wisdom to know the difference, right? To me, that's the epitome of responsibility. Anything that we could potentially have impact on, we get the opportunity to be responsible for creating it and defining how it goes. And there are things that we can't be responsible for, but there's something about accepting that's really grounded in responsibility. So I don't know. This literally just came to me this second, but I kind of feel like that right there, the serenity prayer, to me seems like exactly how I would define responsibility. We get to be responsible for everything, how our relationships go, right? So many times I'm in conversation of me versus them, right? I'm right, they're wrong. but then I get to stop and look at like, how am I responsible for how the relationship's going? How am I responsible, for how this conversation's going? How am I responsible, right? Like, so many times where I'm so tired, my schedule's so crazy. Like, believe me, like, I get it. I haven't been off of a call in 12 hours, yet I get to be responsible if that was a choice that I made. I also get to be responsible that in preparation for this, for knowing that this was going to be my day, I got good rest last night. I did some good grounding to start my day. I'm ending it with a call that I love, that's fun, right? Like, I think so many times we as humans, maybe I'm projecting, but I think that we as humans feel that we're the victim to things around us.
Mm.
But my definition of responsibility is like actually looking at like in every little thing around us, like where could we have created impact, or where can we create impact? Where can we be a part of the creation process for how it goes?
Mm. Thank you so much for that, Gabby, and thanks for starting there. I love this notion of framing responsibility as something that we get to do, or an opportunity. Because so often I think the word responsibility is attached to this notion of burden, right? Like, it's responsibility, this big heavy thing that is just thrust upon us, and while that may be true sometimes, responsibility is also this thing that we get to do, and it's a choice that we get to make about how we show up and how we create impact. As you said, I don't think there's a better way to say that. So thank you for that great reminder, and thank you for that jumping off point.
Yeah, I think when you said choice, like that really landed for me. Like, being like deeply responsible is acknowledging when there's a choice and making one.
Mm.
What I love the breakdown of responsibility into responsibility, our ability to choose what the response is, and to make a clear distinction logically between a response and a reaction.
Yeah.
And to break that down even further, reaction is react from the past, right, in quotations. And I love that we're on this idea of choice, because everything is a choice at the end of the day.
Yeah, I had a therapist once who would say responsibility versus reactability. And that's what just came up for me when you said that. So thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, of course. Because that is what it comes down to. So, as we've named this, what kind of conversation do we want to have around responsibility?
I want to pick up this thread around response. Like, there's something proactive, there's something active about responsibility, right? Like, it is not a reaction. And if it's something that we choose into, if it's something that we're committed to, right, as a responsibility, then it is something that we are constantly present to. Right.
Yeah. I mean, well, when we talked about responsibility as choice, like this came up a few calls ago. I don't remember the context at all, but there was something around, like, I think Yves-Olivier did like a really vulnerable share around like you were, and apologies if I butcher it, but like, a victim to your suffering, or something like that. And we pointed out that while I don't think that you are consciously making the choice to be a victim to your suffering, it's still a choice, right? To stay in that, or to be that, or whatever. And so what I've noticed is that as I've taken on a practice around responsibility, which, by the way, was something that like was not a place where I think that I was really coming from about 2 years ago and earlier, but as I've taken on this practice, like, I think the first step is really just starting to notice like where there our choices, right? Because it can be so automatic, again, as I said earlier, to be like, I'm a victim of this, I'm a victim to the circumstances. But like, where can I start to like look around and notice like every little second that there's actually an opportunity for you to make a choice, and that's like, if you can see it, then you can do it, right? Like that's being responsible, is noticing all the places where we're making choices where we don't even realize that we're making choices.
Gabby, can you expound upon that a little bit, like for some practical application? Like, what does that look like in a moment in time in your life, like today, even?
Well, I think like where I get to be like responsible is, sorry. Where I get to be responsible is, for instance,
like when you're doing Instagram Live and you have a puppy in the house.
Yeah, right. Like I get to be responsible that, like, instead of being like, I'm the victim, this is so annoying, like my dog, right? There's a few options available to me. I can apologize and explain. I can see if I can relocate somewhere else. I can ask for support from someone, to, aka Michael, to like see if we can quiet the dog, right?
Or you can celebrate having a puppy in the house.
I can celebrate having a puppy in the house. I can celebrate that the puppy like loves me so much that she's barking because she wants to hang out with me. Like, or I could do absolutely fucking nothing, and that's a choice too. But where I was talking about the noticing is like, even if I choose to do nothing, that's still a choice. That's still me showing up responsibly, versus in the past, before I really took on this practice of responsibility, I may have hypothetically not done anything, but not identified or recognized that that was a moment of choice.
Yeah, outside of reactivity.
Wow. Yeah, there's so much. I'm like, there's so much energy coming up right now, because just the idea of, I mean, there's something exciting about even just noticing that we have a choice in all things, right? Like just coming to that place and pairing that with responsibility, or even reframing slightly, shifting just a smidge, and saying that it is our responsibility to notice the choices.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's chicken and egg. I don't know which is first, but both are beautiful, I think, in my mind anyway. But there's something really empowering and really exciting. Like I'm just somatically, I'm buzzing right now, so I'm happy.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, for me, what's coming up, I love that you brought in the awareness of automatics, Gabby, because we have a responsibility to our automatics already, right? It's our baggage. And the cycles that it plays out is ours to own. How it shows up is ours to own. And its dismantling is ours. And at each of those facets and all the stages that I'm not even naming, right? Those are all the different choice points that we have. I love that we get to sit down and dissect it. Best choice of the day. Let's talk about the relationship, because I love, on this thread of the automatics and baggage, right? What is our responsibility? Because I know that for myself, for a long, long time, the do nothing was my choice. Like, oh, some of this stuff would just go away on its own. But realizing that I'm not only responsible for my survival, but all the things that led to my survival, right, are still in play, right? All of the shadow work that we talk about, the pieces of ourselves, these karmic cycles that will play out over and over again, that are all geared for our protection. are still with us. And I think we're at a cool point because the COVID space really allowed us to look in the mirror and say, okay, what is here in our space? What do I want to be responsible for, and what do I not want to be responsible for anymore?
Mm.
And as we're coming out of it, and you, Gabby, with your new puppy, right? This is the point where we get to say, okay, choosing to be responsible for these things. This is the energy that I'm choosing that I will respond to. And I love that you brought in the serenity prayer, right? The courage to change things that need to be changed, and the wisdom to know the difference between what can and can't.
Mm. Yeah, as you were speaking, Yves-Olivier, this phrase, "I'm responsible for my own liberation," came to mind. I don't know. Yeah, that is just where I am right now. I am responsible for my own liberation.
What does that liberation look like?
Mm. Yeah, well, when you know what triggered it is when you said thinking about this reflection period that we just came out of, right? This great reflection, this global reflection period that we came out of, and I think a lot of us made a lot of choices, or we a lot of us went through. It was trying, but I think a lot of us went through a lot of transformation. At least the people in that I'm close to, people in my spheres, went through a lot of transformation. And for some of us, there were choices of liberation, of shedding some things that, and part of that was choosing into not being responsible for things, right? So I might be talking in a circle here, but for me right now, that liberation looks like living out some things that I had pushed away for various reasons, but that I am picking up again, and you know, freeing myself from notions of how I want to live and how I want to be in the world, and you know, the way I think of myself, or the way I want to take care of myself, right? Sort of reinventing or reimagining, which I think is liberating. Again, it's choice, right? It's an opportunity to it's things that I get to choose into, and I'm responsible for that. I'm responsible for every piece of it because it's me.
Yeah. Holy you. Holy human.
Mm. Yeah. WH and H. Well, I guess WH has two L's, but whatever.
All right, nerd.
Yeah.
So my automatic around responsibility is to suppress my voice
Mm.
and withhold. Like, I'm thinking primarily around like my responsibility in relationships, because that's where just like I see it showing up the most. Although I'm sure there are other, I know there are other ways too, but um, I my automatic is to forego my both opportunity and responsibility, for lack of a better word, to be responsible for how the relationship goes. So if something's bothering me, if I'm not getting what I need, if I'm holding something on someone, like my automatic is to just not say the thing. But ultimately, what happens is I'm building up resentment. You know, I'm really missing out on an opportunity to be in partnership with this person, be vulnerable with this person, intimate with this person. I mean, the people that I am able to be the most intimate with, or the people that I feel the most close with, are people that I have actually had difficult conversations with, right? Um,
Mm.
and so by showing up and saying, hey, like, this is how the relationship's been going thus far, Here's what I see. Here's what I over here desire to potentially be different. What do you see? What do you want? Do we see a similar gap? Is there a way to support each other, right? And I think my automatic is to not go there at all. And so when I think there are lots of different ways where I'm practicing responsibility in my life. And I can share a few more examples later on, but I would say the number one thing is in regard to relationship.
Thanks for bringing that in. Responsibility has such a weight to it, right? And it's so easy to declare our plates full as they are. And especially in relationship, there's a lot that goes unsaid. There's a lot that's assumed. And in that, where responsibility for the unison, right? Obviously it's a shared thing, but it's like a give and a take. I see. And I love that you distinguish that your automatic is to just not say the thing, right? Allow, kind of seems that what's coming up for me is that allow the tension or whatever's stirring to settle and have the relationship itself be the structure, right? The relationship, the foundation, be the connection around which everything can settle. Yeah. When I think about responsibility, thinking about this, of course, the first thing from a capitalistic structure, right? We're responsible for bills. We're responsible to pay our taxes and pay rent and all that jazz. And I noticed that my automatic in response to that is kind of a protest. Like I don't wanna, I don't want to pay taxes. I don't want to pay my rent. We're just meant to just be born and eat fruit and vibe and enjoy. But for whatever reason, right, I've chosen this timeline, I've chosen this body, I've chosen the family that I have. And from that, I get to choose my response. And it would be so easy to bitch and moan and complain. Why me? Why this? Why capitalism? Why white supremacy? And what I've been trying to play with the last couple of days is, what if all of this is for me? Right? Because in the scope of the larger systems, right, capitalism is nearing its collapse. The United States is due for a reckoning. White supremacy is permeated everywhere.
Going strong.
And it's really easy to point the finger and say, no, not this. And at a certain point, I caught myself just kind of praying to the universe, help make it go away. And then saying, okay, wait, if I'm praying for it, then I'm the answer. And as much as it's difficult, right, we have a responsibility outside of just caring for ourselves, right, in these larger systems, caring for each other. And that goes exactly what you were saying, Gabby, in terms of, the automatic of not wanting to point, not wanting to name it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's so easy, right? Because then the status quo gets to be maintained, and then things just get to be. I think we're being all called to respond differently now more than ever.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Wow.
Yeah, thanks for holding the rant.
No, it wasn't. Well, I don't think it was a rant. It was very profound. What came up for me as you were speaking, though, is you mentioned the system. And one of the other things that I've been thinking a lot about is, we've talked about responsibility for self, right? Which is true. And I also think that is a very, since you mentioned white supremacy and these other sort of colonial ideals, right? That's a very Western idea, the self, right? A lot of other cultures, it's about the community, right? So responsibility to the community. You are not an individual, you are part of a community. And when you were talking about the system and your place in it and why you're here, at least that's what I was hearing with my ears. It was also this responsibility to, which is a really big, grand idea, right? Responsibility to the community, right? I am not an individual. I am part of something larger. I am part of a larger system. And when you attach responsibility to that, wow.
Yeah, so I had a kind of like I don't even know what to call it, some sort of reaction to what Nick was just saying. I went through a very long conversation in about 1 second in my head. Um, as someone who is like, feels like very called forward to be politically and civilly active because of like the good of the world and the impact that I want to make in the world. I think there's a tiny distinction here. Like, I had a reaction when Nick was talking about like the responsibility to the community, and I had actually like a negative reaction in terms of I felt like it was about like a should, right? Like I should be responsible for this. I should be responsible for the community, for other people. And I'm really not like about the shoulds, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm all about like we define like our own paths, and it's not about how or what we should show up as. And so, but then I was like, why am I like having a like a reaction against like being responsible for community, especially for me? Like that's like it's such a huge part of my values. And I think the small distinction is actually again going back to the choice, right? So it's how we're defining responsibility. So it's not like, oh, you're responsible for the community, like you need to do. And I know that's not what you meant, Nick. It's just like where my brain went, like, oh, this is what you should do as a human being. But it's like actually, like for me, when I think about my vision for the world, when I think about the impact I want to make, when I think about what I see as fair and right and just, if I truly believe it, that I'm so called forward to do something. I feel called to be responsible for how it goes. I see how I'm responsible. So it's not about a responsibility like, oh, you need to do this, but it's within myself. Like I need to be I get to be responsible for how it goes. And that's what drives me to be an activist in my own right. Does that make
Mm,
sense?
Mm,
mm,
yeah, that makes total sense.
mm,
What it sounds like to me is like having not only the self-awareness to contextualize yourself amidst the stuff, then choosing from a place of essence and highest good, right? What are you going to do about
mm.
Yeah. And like, what are you going to do about it because of your vision and your essence? And you, yeah.
Mm.
The funny thing about responsibility is I feel like it's something that like I so like avoid or put on the back burner again, like until I started doing this work, like this was not a concept I really associated with. Um, but the funny thing about it is when I'm like really responsible, like I feel great. Like when I'm responsible and I'm owning it. It's like, wow, like I have the power to create my experience, to impact others. Like I get to be responsible for how everything goes from my self care to my schedule to my relationships to what's going on in the fucking world. Like, and I'm just like, I'm a powerful human being and I feel good when I'm stepping up in that ownership and utilizing my power to create my world. And it's
Mm.
so interesting how there's so many things that take us out of responsibility. Again, I'll speak for myself. There's so many things that take me out of responsibility. And when I am in responsibility, I feel great.
Well, I think I hear you talking about living versus life happening to you,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Exactly.
You are choosing to swim instead of allowing the current to just take you adrift.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was a really weird analogy, but that's what
I'm
just
so
came to
into
me.
it.
It was perfect. That's exactly it. Right? Choosing to live versus allow like having life happen to you
Mm.
day in, day out. And that's the gift of it all, right?
That's the gift.
We get to, and we get to.
Yeah. And if there's anyone that's listening that wants to jump into this conversation, feel free.
Yeah, I'd love to invite someone up or at minimum put something in the chat.
Or just just request to join our conversation. Yeah, I love what you just said, Gabby, which I know it's a little tongue in cheek, but it's that thing of we get to and we get to. Like it's life. That's living. I mean, that's what life is, right?
Yeah.
It's the both and.
Yeah.
Yeah. The both and. Mm. Wow.
Um, can I pose to the group a little closing question
Please.
um, that either can be nice and short and sweet or can open up a whole nother door? I'm open. And this is to everyone who's listening to either comment or ask to come up, whatever. Um, what is something that you see that you can be responsible for in the next week in your life?
I to echo a coaching call that I had this morning. Um, Feeling the pull for things to slow down. From an empowered place of I get to dictate the pace. So this week, I'm inviting an ability to respond to a slowness that my body is asking for,
Mm.
Mm.
to care for.
Mm.
I like that.
Mm. So can I tell you, when you asked that question, Gabby, I found my automatic was to look for the right answer.
Mm.
Yeah. So I just want to,
Shocker.
I know. So I just want to acknowledge that and put that into the space. And actually, what Yves-Olivier just said, I think, is also what I will be responsible to, because it's funny. This is a really slow week for me, just schedule wise, and today I was like looking for ways to fill up my week. I was like, I've got all this free time. I need to fill it up, right? And you know, part of my self-care is listening to my body, listening to the universe. When I have free time, I need to actually just have free time, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I'm right there. And I didn't want that to be the right answer.
Sylvan in the chat put daring to go back to life after COVID. It's a lot of bravery. I get that. I really get that. I think for me, there's oh my god, I came up with 3 answers. I gotta pick one.
Or put them all out into the space.
There's one friend that I realize I'm holding something on that I'm excited to chat with and let them know what's up, because I fucking love this human being and we deserve to be responsible and partner together. So I'm gonna do that this week. The other thing is, like, tonight, like, I'm getting off this call at like 9:15, and I have this huge list of things I still need to do tonight, but I'm gonna let myself relax a little bit because I haven't done that yet, and I really want to, and that's me being responsible for, like, the whole reason that I work is to, like, actually enjoy my life, so I should do that. So that's what I'll be for myself.
Mm. Can we support you in that second one somehow?
Yeah, actually, let me declare what TV show I'm gonna watch. If I leave in Hey, sorry, I had to open my TV app.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna watch an episode of Desperate Housewives.
Ooh, yes. Okay.
Beautiful. Well, thank you all for this. A lot of love to you both. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for joining the Coach's Corner.
Come back next week.
We'll be here next week. Bye, y'all.